Magnetic storm season has begun. The air shivers. Auroras tear across the sky in green and violet fractures. Charged winds slip through alleyways and courtyards, stirring metallic dust into uneasy spirals. Lamps hum, floor panels tremble, the dunes exhale. Stand still long enough, and your teeth begin to vibrate alongside with the planet itself. Curiosity mongers, if you've come for mischief and delightful uncertainty, you are precisely where you are meant to be. This is Neural Nonsense, a podcast exploring strange worlds and stranger systems, where empire logic pirouettes on the head of a pin and chaos theory occasionally drops by for tea. I am Schmetterling, and beside me, as always, Dr. Etherstein, whose caution is as legendary as the man himself.
Restraint preserves civilization.
And so does rhythm, as it happens. Today we enter a place of terrifying beauty, the top of the Empire's emerging art forms list, the magnetic storm season special of planet Madane, the Ruthenium Orchestra Festival, which, in my humble opinion, has risen to the top quite mysteriously.
Its ascent is not mysterious. The system demonstrates measurable environmental stabilization, though I remain reluctant to categorize it as art.
Declared art it is. Born of necessity, the Ruthenium Orchestra traces its origins to a time of magnetic storm season and to a mystic from District 3 who tuned the ground itself to respond in resonance. Utility gave way to ritual. Ritual grew into art, and eventually it became a celebrated spectacle, tastefully promoted across the Empire by the Verdant Initiative.
All right, I concede. It is declared an art form, but you promised not to lead with the Verdant Initiative.
All right. Dreamwalkers. In this episode you may hear the city hum, feel the storms shift beneath your feet, and perhaps glimpse the pulse of a planet itself. First, let us attempt to bring to you the experience of the Ruthenium Orchestra, both in the early days, when the people of Madane were only learning how to coax the ground into resonance, and in the present, when it has become a living, vibrating performance. Magnetic storm season has begun. The air shivers. Auroras tear across the sky in green and violet fractures. Charged winds slip through alleyways and courtyards, stirring metallic dust into uneasy spirals. Lamps hum, floor panels tremble, the dunes exhale. Stand still long enough, and your teeth begin to vibrate alongside with the planet itself. As seasonal behaviors go, it is admittedly less convenient than rain. Dr. Etherstein, let's look at the process first. What, scientifically speaking, is happening?
Yes. What's happening here is rather fascinating. The planet itself is oscillating. The magnetic season begins with the passing of Moon Ganya, whose current orbital position intensifies the electromagnetic flux across Madane, compressing the magnetosphere and ionizing the upper atmosphere.
Yes, and that is when the ground responds, isn't it?
Exactly. A chain reaction unfolds when the immense magnetic flux couples with the crust below, where subterranean ruthenium-rich mineral veins respond to the fluctuating field by vibrating, and that motion propagates outward through the surrounding bedrock, spreading in slow resonant waves beneath the surface.
And the people caught in the heart of the storm's fiercest activity did what sensible beings have always done when the planet begins to tremble. They prayed for safe passage and hoped their roofs stayed firmly in place.
I agree. It must have been absolutely terrifying. These oscillations were entirely uncoordinated. Overlapping frequencies collided unpredictably, amplifying in some regions, while cancelling in others, causing buildings to slip into mechanical feedback loops and load-bearing joints to fatigue and unprotected electronics to desynchronize. And people experienced what we now classify as storm blindness. Quite unpleasant, I will say. This was definitely no symphony.
Well, yes, but perhaps only during the brief period analogous to an orchestral tuning, when disorder momentarily aligns and the chaos almost resembles harmony. Things began to change for the better when a Dragalu mystic named Ku Lao first began weaving chants and carefully measured vibrations into special ruthenium shards, objects designed not only to stabilize the dwellings of the people, but to shield them from the worst of the storms. He knew the land, he knew the sky, and he chose the locations of each shard without instruments, without calibrated tools, guided only by a subtle recognition of patterns. And slowly he turned terror into wonder. We will, more than likely, return to Kulao, but for now, what do you call that, Doctor, when chaos itself begins to behave? How does science explain his mystical actions?
Imagine an orchestra where every instrument begins playing a different symphony at once. Kulao did not silence them, he merely persuaded them to share a tempo. We call this phase alignment. Records suggest Kulao introduced controlled rhythmic input by striking ruthenium nodes at calculated intervals and positioning them at geometric stress points, thereby shifting the oscillations toward constructive alignment and reducing the destructive interference that had destabilized the district.
So we could say that he taught the ground how to hum properly, which raises an interesting question, Doctor. When does survival become art?
Science does not recognize a precise moment at which survival becomes art, and the classification tends to follow stability, repetition, and consensus. And I remain convinced that what we are observing here appears far closer to a volatile planetary force than to anything I would comfortably describe as an art form. I should also add,
there's always some more addendums with you, dear Doctor.
For scientific accuracy, I believe it is worth noting that most structures in District 3 still require recalibration during peak storm surges. Stronger flux events can overwhelm smaller installations, and phase drift sets in, and systems begin to destabilize. At the height of the season, you will see practitioners tapping structural nodes with calibrated rods. The knocking is not ceremonial, it is corrective maintenance.
Though it does look wonderfully dramatic, and the chanting.
The chanting is the fine-tuning. The human voice is highly adaptive. Sustained vocal tones can stabilize oscillation intervals in ways mechanical systems sometimes fail to replicate.
So all of this together, dear Dreamwalkers, is what we now call the Ruthenium Orchestra. Shall we perhaps discuss how visitors might experience this remarkable new art form?
I have provided the structural explanation, so I shall defer to you for the poetic liabilities. Though I would recommend appropriate footwear.
Dear fellow art lovers, this experience does not happen with you sitting quietly in a velvet chair. You walk through District 3 while the air hums around you, and you feel the knock, deliberate, measured, echoing from the corners of buildings. You begin to notice how each tremor settles, like a breath released through stone, how the vibration gathers and then softens again. Sometimes it is subtle, a technician tapping a shard, a small circle sustaining a tone in a courtyard, the sound barely rising above the wind. And sometimes, oh sometimes, it becomes something else entirely. Terraces illuminated, resonance cascading from facade to facade, the entire district tuned and trembling like a living instrument. Then there are the two amphitheatres, one carved into a meteor crater, originally a Kulao sanctuary, and the other in an old mining site, the Vapomancer arena, hosting more tech-focused shows. To reach them, you traverse the stormproof road, flanked by glowing ruthenium shards and industrial pylons that hum in sync with the magnetic pulse. Visitors may attend sanctioned performances at both arenas during peak storm cycles. Outside the magnetic season, Desert Edge tours let observers witness resonance fields where dunes shift in visible patterned waves, quite breathtaking.
And a note to our analytical witnesses. A point of geographical clarification. There is only one district permitting public performances, that is District 3, because its long-standing, finely tuned infrastructure remains dynamically responsive. It absorbs and redistributes flux without collapse.
Yes, there's a curious twist in the tale. Both Greenport and Redunia have prohibited such gatherings in their own districts entirely, while the sponsor of the Ruthenium Orchestra Festival, the Verdant Initiative, has taken it upon themselves to run promotional campaigns for all the performances with a level of enthusiasm normally reserved for coronations. For those of you interested in geography, the Verdant initiative is headquartered rather conveniently at the Vapomancers' own halls in the heart of the neighboring Radunia.
I admit the entire situation does not appear safe to me, as any additional resonance introduces unpredictable variables, so I find comfort in knowing that some places remain safely silent.
You worry too much, Etherstein. The storms rarely reach their most violent intensity there. In fact, most magnetic surges simply pass the other districts by, leaving District 3 to wrestle with the full temper of the planet.
I am quite content with the view from here.
Yes, we do in fact have a view of the spectacle from here. As for the more cautious among us, the Drift Gallery streams live transmissions. The one you see behind us now. We have been enjoying it greatly, though I must say, no transmission truly captures the sensation of a planet correcting its own heartbeat beneath your feet. Etherstein, we really should experience this in person. Just imagine it, my dear friend. Thousands gathered within a vast amphitheatre. First built as a sanctuary for those with nowhere else to go, now hosting performances tied to the Ruthenium Orchestra, chants and drums, mystics demonstrating their craft, even Vapomancers unveiling their latest technological marvels. And above it all, bands of magnetic light ripple across the protective shields, colors sliding through the sky like living auroras. The power of nature and the endless creativity of people. Etherstein, are you quite all right?
Yes, it will pass, I think. Yes, I think,
Dreamwalkers, Etherstein has fainted. Please remain calm. This happens occasionally when he encounters enthusiastic geology. We'll take a short break. But in the meantime, Fabricator 7 will take the stage and tell you about the beginnings of the city Trisaka and the origins of Ruthenium Orchestra. Stay tuned, or at least pretend you are.
Suppose a story, not a history lesson. Those are for people who carry clocks in their pockets and patience in bulk. No, this is a story of a planet stubborn as a mule and twice as dusty, built on two truths that will not be argued with: opportunism and ruthenium. Some planets are shaped with care, like an artist smoothing clay. Others are kicked around, dropped, and left to fester. Planet Madane belongs firmly to the second category, and its human history has followed suit. To understand the Ruthenium Orchestra, we must return to the beginnings of the city of Trisaka, which began, like many famous places, as a temporary arrangement that got wildly out of hand. The recently liberated planet Madane was never officially colonized. Instead, it was quietly appropriated by the Pirates and Smugglers Syndicate, the PSS. Like most criminal organizations, the PSS was less a single coordinated entity and more a collection of ambitious individuals who all believed they were the only competent person in the room. They were, of course, mistaken. The first settlement, District 1, later called Greenport, began as a slave mining camp near a rare spurt hole where fresh water surged up from underground channels connected to the distant Northern Ocean. In those early days, there were no drills, no machinery, and very little in the way of long-term planning. Precious ruthenium shards were scattered across much of the planet, courtesy of a meteor that had visited several millennia earlier. Machines came later. Ruthenium was valuable enough to make the slave colony extremely profitable, an essential resource for keeping the empire running smoothly and ensuring that everyone involved became steadily richer in the process. The founders of Greenport traded cautiously and spoke to no one about the planet's location, a secret they managed to keep for several centuries. But time, as it turns out, is extremely good at helping secrets escape their containers. Eventually, other factions of the PSS caught wind of this rich and inconveniently unclaimed world, and then things became competitive. District 2, Radunia, rose under the ambitious pirate king Radok. He brought engineers, not raiders. Engineers rarely stop at improving things. They improve them again and again. Radok understood that the future belonged to those who built first and defended second. Ruthenia did not merely construct. It fortified, prepared, and closed its gates against any who might follow. Which brings us to District 3, recently dubbed Etherstein, a name so controversial that some tribes hear it as a mark of surrender, a sign of weakness. Many still call it simply District 3. The unfortunate settlers, unceremoniously deposited by the smallest PSS faction to work the land for their masters, found themselves in a valley where the Shengho River, which nourished the other districts, simply vanished into the earth. The valley had its own cruel rhythms. Magnetic storms tore through it, floods surged without warning, and in the dry season the soil cracked under a relentless sun. If that weren't enough, Ruthenia's engineers upstream, ever eager to improve and experiment, reshaped the flow of water and twisted the winds. In short, it was the sort of place most people would flee at the first opportunity. These settlers, however, had no choice but to stay. Into this situation stepped a man called Ku Lao. Little about him can be verified through official archives, partly because records are incomplete, partly because legends are far more interesting than paperwork. What is known is that Ku Lao possessed an unusual understanding of storms, shards, and the strange resonant behavior of ruthenium on Madane. He discovered, or perhaps persuaded, the fragments to cooperate, shaping sanctuaries from violent storms. At first he built only a small one, barely enough shelter for a handful of people, but survival on Madane demanded not only creativity, but also making tough choices. Seasons passed. The valley tribes endured the consequences together. Ku Lao persisted, creating more sanctuaries, stabilizing homes against the magnetic storm season, and gradually shaping places where people could live without being blown sideways every few months. As if that project were not ambitious enough, he also managed to unite the ever-squabbling tribes long enough to persuade them to carve a vast moat around their lands. Part defense against flooding, part defense against the increasingly creative hydrological experiments upstream. The moat, widened and reinforced across generations, still marks the quiet border of District 3 today. Inside that ring, Ku Lao created something unusual, a sanctuary of resonance. Shards were tuned, structures began to hum, and when struck carefully with rods, the fragments produced vibrations powerful enough to shape dust, redirect storms, and stabilize the ground itself. If one listened closely, it sounded rather like music. This was the very beginning of the Ruthenium Orchestra. Ruthenia's engineers eventually noticed Ku Lao's achievements with the ruthenium shards. Engineers always notice interesting vibrations, and they quickly began imagining their own paths forward. Despite the tribal council's objections, Ku Lao shared what he had learned, and from these lessons emerged the Vapomancers, the engineers of phase and fluid and masters of resonance. They built machines that floated above the dunes, powered by nothing more than subtle harmonics. Minds fractured cleanly as if persuaded by an invisible hand. They succeeded mixing the Ruthenium Orchestra into their technology, a collaboration between geology, engineering, ritual, and the occasional extremely enthusiastic person with a tuning rod. Future chapters may reveal further developments, but for now, the story pauses here.
So, that, dear Dreamwalkers, was a short tale of Trisaka's beginnings, magnetic storms, whispered rhythms, a mystic who persuaded the ground into cooperation, and the ever-growing tensions between the districts. Quite the melodrama, even by Madane standards.
Yes, indeed. A tale of vibration, ingenuity, and human stubbornness.
And now, from the comfort of the Drift Gallery, suspended in space far from Madane's dust, storms, and ruthenium-laced enthusiasm, we return to our live transmissions. Look around us, we are surrounded by scholars, tourists, critics, And, I suspect, at least one gentleman attempting to conduct the storm with a dessert spoon. The Ruthenium Orchestra Festival continues to captivate the Empire.
A great spectacle, yes. Though observing planetary resonance from a safe distance is considerably preferable to feeling the ground correct your posture unexpectedly.
Oh, absolutely. But it does raise a curious question, Etherstein. If this is merely an art form, why is the Empire so enthusiastic about promoting it?
You refer again, of course, as expected, to the Verdant Initiative.
Indeed. Verdant Initiative, dear curiosity mongers, are the sponsors of the festival, tireless promoters and advocates, presenting the phenomenon as a cultural treasure. Quite a remarkable publicity campaign. It feels like only a few weeks ago that the news was buzzing about the ruthenium rush on Madane, and just as we began speculating how these new deposits might save the Empire, we now find the entire Empire captivated by this cultural phenomenon. Festival broadcasts are already circulating across half its territories.
Which is precisely why I remain skeptical of the term art form. This seems a great understatement for a resonant infrastructure capable of influencing geological stability.
But that is the beauty of it. Call something art and suddenly everyone relaxes. Call it a planetary defense system, however. And people begin asking terribly inconvenient questions.
Such as who controls it?
Exactly, and we do so dislike awkward questions during a festival.
There are many questions that haven't been brought up. The physics alone suggests broader possibilities. If the resonance network across District 3 can stabilize storm activity, in theory, the same system that calms storms might also persuade them to gather in certain ways.
Oh, amplify a planet's magnetic storms? Oh, now that would be a rather dramatic performance piece.
It would also qualify as a strategic asset.
Which brings us neatly back to the Verdant Initiative. Officially, they conduct environmental research from Ruthenium, and then, of course, unofficially, rumors suggest their research is under the Imperial Seal.
You know as well as I do that an Empire Seal is rarely a public endorsement.
As I said, these are rumors, dear Etherstein, nothing more, though admittedly rumors with very tidy paperwork.
Sponsoring a festival would be an elegant way to monitor the system, encourage performances, observe resonance patterns, collect data.
Perfect, using art as research.
Precisely.
You must admit, it's rather clever. Instead of laboratories and military oversight, the Empire receives an entire civilization happily demonstrating the system in public, complete with lighting effects and enthusiastic applause.
Humans have always wrapped necessity in beauty.
And beauty in spectacle, which explains the crowd here tonight. Hundreds gathered to watch a planet vibrate from a perfectly safe distance.
A distance I find quite satisfactory.
You would.
I fainted once already today.
Yes, and the gallery staff are still discussing it with great admiration.
Absolutely. So wonderful.
But consider this, Dreamwalkers, whether the Ruthenium Orchestra is art, engineering, or something more strategic, the Empire has ensured one thing above all. Everyone is watching.
And when everyone is watching, experiments become remarkably easy to conduct.
None of this is real, of course, unless you make it real. So, a small question before we conclude. When does something become art?
A dangerously imprecise question.
Naturally. Let us attempt a few answers. Perhaps the Ruthenium Orchestra becomes art the moment people feel awe, when the ground trembles and fear turns into wonder. Or perhaps it becomes art when that feeling is shared, when one person hears the rhythm and another understands it.
A collective response does not alter the underlying mechanism.
No, but it does make it meaningful. Or perhaps art is far simpler than that. Perhaps something becomes art the moment someone declares it so. A tribal council, a festival program, a very enthusiastic initiative with excellent marketing.
A label is not a transformation.
No, but it is remarkably persuasive. And then, of course, there is the question of context. The system itself has not changed. The shards vibrate as they always have. The storms remain unapologetic. And yet, in one setting, it is survival. In another, engineering. And here, it is performance.
Which suggests the distinction lies not in the system, but in the observer.
Precisely. So perhaps nothing ever becomes art at all. Perhaps we simply begin to see it that way. So, dreamwalkers, we arrive at the end of our little excursion, a city that hums, a planet that refuses to stay still, and a people who learned, somehow, not to silence the storm, but to listen to it. Perhaps the Ruthenium Orchestra is art. Perhaps it is infrastructure. Perhaps it is something far less convenient to classify.
The system remains what it has always been, a network of resonant interactions stabilizing an unstable environment. Whether one chooses to admire it does not alter its function.
No. But it does alter us, doesn't it? Because somewhere between survival and spectacle, between necessity and celebration, we began to hear something else in the noise, a rhythm, a pattern, a meaning. And perhaps that is all art has ever been, not something that changes the world, but something that changes how we notice it.
A perceptual adjustment.
A very poetic one, Doctor. So whether the orchestra is a masterpiece or a mechanism politely pretending to be one thing is certain, the planet is still humming. And now a question for you. Which corner of Trissica shall we explore next? Vapomancer ingenuity, the legend of King Radok? Or perhaps move away from the city and the Ruthenium rush and explore the mystical mountains of the south, shrouded in impenetrable storm clouds since the meteor reshaped this planet?
I shall leave the choice to the observers of consequence, our attentive, analytical minds.
Comment, deliberate, or simply hum along. Your choice will guide us. After all, nothing here is real, unless you make it so. And remember, some planetary secrets may only be heard if you truly listen. This has been Neural Nonsense. Think responsibly, or don't. And until next time, Dreamwalkers, keep listening and keep your attention tuned to the pulse of the planet.